Mark, and today on Outside Views, I have to talk about Brexit again. Because Brexit has an impact on food imports in Great Britain, and the industry now fears what they call a cheese blockade. The UK food industry has changed since Brexit. In February and March, fresh vegetables ran out in supermarkets because of poor harvests in Morocco and Spain and Brexit. And wholesalers are paying less to ship to mainland Europe, as a spokesman for Britain's Farmer Association BGA told Euronews, for example. And now another good could be in short supply in UK supermarkets because from November 1st there will be additional border checks in Great Britain as a result of Brexit. And that could lead to problems when importing raw milk cheese, frozen and fresh meat. And that's a fear that Shane Brennan, the CEO of the Cold Chain Federation, said. That's an import association for refrigerated food. And he said that in an interview with The Telegraph. We will see from November 1st that many EU importers will not be able to keep their UK orders for the holiday shopping season, he said. There could be a cheese blockage. Some products would probably not be available, and if they were, then at significantly higher prices. By the way, border checks should have been in place for a few years, but Great Britain itself had postponed them again and again. For the first time since Brexit, there is nevertheless a ray of hope in German-British foreign trade. A third of all companies expect sales increases in Great Britain in 23, according to a survey by the auditing company KPMG and the British Chamber of Commerce in Germany, which was available to the German press agency in London. Almost half, with 48%, are optimistic about the medium-term view over the next 5 years. KPMG and BCCG spoke of a trend reversal. However, Brexit is still leaving its mark, even 3 years later, because a good half, with 51% of companies, are complaining that the economic situation is deteriorating and only 14% see an improvement. More than twice as many companies as in 21 are planning smaller investments of up to 5 million euros in Great Britain in the next 3 years. However, none of the companies surveyed intends to invest more than 250 million. Great Britain was the only one of the G20 countries not to reach the pre-corona level of gross national product last year. The cause is the braking effect of Brexit, and that was said by KPMG as well. As of January 1st, 2021, the UK is no longer a member of the EU customs union and single market, and since then, German-British trade has plummeted. For the first time since the Second World War, the United Kingdom dropped out of the top 10 German foreign trade partners last year. And a last-minute agreement still ensures largely tariff-free trade now. Nevertheless, trade barriers have emerged. Respondents also complained about this, and for more than 1 in 4 companies, the increased administrative burden is the main burden. Increased logistics costs and customs duties also continue to cause concern. And at the same time, it was said that the central challenges were perceived as less onerous than in the previous year. 136 companies took part in the German-British Business Outlook survey. Nevertheless, trends can be discerned. The survey also revealed areas where the UK is doing well. Around a quarter of those surveyed described the United Kingdom as more business-friendly and less regulated than Germany. The biggest business opportunity is therefore the growing sales market. Great Britain remains an important economic partner for the German economy on its own doorstep. That's also said by KPMG. This is crucial, especially in times of increasing geopolitical tensions. In the medium term, business believes that the economic situation in Great Britain will improve and is hoping for a rapprochement with the EU, but they also think that there will be new deals. But there are also repeated twists and turns about the measures taken within Great Britain after Brexit. And Britain is now looking to boost domestic wine production by lifting rules from the EU era, the 4001. These reforms will give our wine growers a rocket boost, that was said by Agriculture Minister Therese Coffey. They will boost the economy, create jobs and support an important part of our food and beverage sector. But remember, Coffey said that. The measures are expected to free up to £180 million for investment, as Coffee said. According to government information, restrictions that previously prevented the production of new blends are now being lifted. Bottlers are also allowed to convert imported wine into sparkling wine. And packaging regulations such as sealing foil for certain sparkling wines will also be lifted to allow for cheaper alternatives. But we talk about if they want to sell this to the EU later. For too long, our producers have been held back by cumbersome, outdated EU regulations, Coffee said. We give them the freedom they need to thrive. The head of the Wine and Spirit Trade Association, Miles Beale, welcomed the innovation. With the introduction of greater flexibility, wine producers and importers will not be forced to do anything differently but will be able to innovate, said Beale. British wine production has recently increased significantly. Chapel Down, one of the largest producers, announced that sales had increased by more than 50% in 22 to a record of 790,000 bottles. And according to industry information, the area under cultivation has grown by 70% in the past 5 years. And mainly white and sparkling wines are produced. The growing areas are mainly in southern England, where there is a mild climate due to the Gulf Stream. The most important export countries are Norway, the USA, Canada, and Australia. Compared to traditional wine countries such as Italy, France, or Germany, however, Great Britain lags far behind. The Conservative government has announced that it will let numerous laws from the EU period expire at the end of the year. But instead of the initially announced 4,000 laws, only about 600 are now said to be affected. And Conservative hardliners accuse Prime Minister Rishi Sunak of betraying Brexit. Experts emphasize, however, that otherwise there would be gaps in labour law and consumer protection. Yeah, this government, because apart from Brexit, I have to mention one more matter today that can probably be called symptomatic of the current government. Because according to a newspaper report, the British Home Secretary Suella Braverman tried to prevent a fine for speeding with the help of government officials. The arch-conservative politician asked for private retraining to prevent payment. That was written by the Sunday Times, but the advance had failed. The Home Office said the minister had paid the fine and accepted 3 points after the incident in the summer of 22, but she still tried. The opposition is calling for an investigation into whether Braverman broke ministerial rules there. The Prime Minister has promised integrity, professionalism, and accountability, but it seems his Home Secretary is blatantly disregarding those 3 points. That was said by Labour Party Vice leader Yvette Cooper. Braverman initially received no explicit support from Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. He neither knows the full details nor has spoken to her. That's what Sunak said on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Hiroshima. It is my understanding that she expressed her regret at the speeding, accepted the penalty, and paid the fine, Sunak said. A government spokesman later emphasized that the Prime Minister had confidence in Braverman. We all know what happened when Merkel said something like this about a minister. But Sunak had appointed Braverman as a Home Secretary in the fall. She had resigned from office just a few days earlier, still under short-term Prime Minister Liz Truss, because, contrary to ministerial rules, she had forwarded an official document with her private email address. Braverman is considered one of the leading forces of the right wing in the Conservative Party, which is gaining increasing influence with nationalist slogans. And in this case, it doesn't play a role if in the end she paid the fine. The question that needs to be cleared is, did she try to convince the police to alter the fine? And she knew that the police knew who she was. And that is the point here about the ministerial code. And for 1 second, I have to come back to another minister, and that's Therese Coffey. We know her and her appearances in other ministerial posts. And so I'm a bit careful when I read anything from her office. But one point is clear. Going away from EU rules here will make it harder to export these wines to anyone closely connected to the EU. So if they change the rules, they will not be able to export these wines to the EU. Secondly, they will not anymore be able probably to export them to Norway, because Norway is part of EFTA. And the list will go on in time. And so they might be celebrating now while they have a certain market. I mean, 790,000 bottles. I don't know if France is exporting that by the minute. I'm not sure. But still, they are reducing their export markets, especially the one right on their doorstep. But of course, I can understand that the EU is not that attractive with Italian wine, with Spanish wine, with French wine, with German wine, and even Bulgarian wine, and everything right at their doorstep. It will probably be harder to get on that market, but still. Nevertheless, Brexit has a lot of facets, and the checks that are supposed to finally start. I don't know how many times Boris Johnson already shifted those dates forward. They should have started the day they left the EU single market, just saying, and that's 3 years ago. And if they finally come now, of course that will have an impact, because they are a third country now, and they were always talking about sovereignty and taking control of their borders. For the last 3 years, they haven't taken control of their border for goods in this regard. Brexit is a gift that keeps on giving, and I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.